And action. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name is Clive Bissell, also known as Oliver Stoned. I'm sitting quite low today because my chair is broke. Work dried up last year. So it's been a bit of a tough one, but someone I was working with throughout most of the year was a gang called Ben Wood and the Bad Ideas. And I am very lucky to be joined by Benjamin Wood.
Hey, Welshie, how you going, Lethal Bissell?
And the Bad Idea himself, Mr. Andy Dookie Duke.
Hello, hello. Oliver, are you stoned?
No, I'm not actually. I'm on the ginger and rubus tea today.
Oh, cheers.
How are you guys?
Very well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's very early January. It's cold and dark, but we're not going to let that get us down too much.
No.
So, basically what we're going to do is a bit of a catch up and just chat about the last 12 months, really. It was a bit of a wild one for the whole planet. So could we have maybe just a brief history of the band? Because you were on hiatus for a little while. And then
we formed the band officially in around 2010, 2011 in London. After Duke and I met in a cupboard, but we'll get into that shortly, I'm sure. Went on to start working together in a few different guises and playing shows and writing, and then ended up recruiting some other knuckleheads to be additional Bad Ideas, and did a few tunes and some runs of shows, short tours, and then we had a bit of a hiatus. And I guess what would be now about sort of 14 months ago, I got in contact with you boys to see if we could fire up the machine.
Well, because we'd lost contact for a few years, and you just called out the blue and said you'd been talking about it. I remember years and years ago, 12 singles in 12 months. And I hadn't heard from you in ages, and you called up maybe November 2019 saying, It's on, we're going to do it.
Yeah, and I think it was a bit of a surprise because although we'd been in contact to a degree, we hadn't been making music for a while after being super busy for a good few years. And as you say, it's something we talked about periodically in the early days of Bad Ideas, and what a challenge that would be, how that would work in today's sort of release climate. And we were excited about it at the time. Again, something we cooked up in the boozer, I think, after a few, thinking this would be, again, a bad idea. But yeah, we went for it, didn't we? In November, we started laying the groundwork to do it, which would have been a challenging 2020 anyway. But of course, the obvious happening made it totally insane.
Something happened. I don't remember what it was.
Where does the name and the Bad Ideas come from? I believe your name's Ben Wood.
He is allegedly. He'll never stand up in court.
I heard you guys met doing some charity work for the guide dogs. Is that right?
We did, Andy. We did. Did we not?
We met in the cupboard of Guide Dogs central office, just in Euston, and I was running. Well, at the time, I was fostering a guide dog and running low on poop scoops. And things were getting serious. And I met this lovely person with fantastic sideys who was working in reception. And I asked whether or not there were any spare poop bags to hand. The lovely person with the sideys, who is Benny Woo Woo, directed me to a tiny cupboard and handed me a box of poop scoops and asked, "Something for the weekend, sir?" And that's how it all started.
That's
the foundation. They are the humble. That's the humble foundation of this here band, Welshie.
And the name comes from something. You had to do a song in 24 hours or something.
We've been talking about what we were going to do musically, and sort of we'd go at the time I was busking on the underground. That was my daytime job. I had a license to busk on all the tubes. Another great idea by our illustrious Bozza, the leader that is. And Andy would come and meet me after I'd finished the slot. And if it was an evening one, it'd be in Angel. We'd try and do it in Angel because there's a pub there called the Nag's Head that we really like. And I'd finish doing that and we'd go over and have a few beers. And we got the opportunity to be featured, to feature on a polystyrene tribute record featuring of X-Ray Specs covers that was going on stateside in Brooklyn, I think. It was Permanent Wave, the feminist record label. And they had a slot going that Andy had found out about. And it was literally, I mean, deadline was like 48 hours. And we were only discussing working together at that stage. But then it was like, I think we'd had a couple of jugs of Celtic Warrior, a lovely brew they make in that particular pub. And he said, let's just go for it. We'll get some people in and I know a guy and we'll go to the studio and get it cut. And I thought 48 hours to get everything mixed and mastered and cut, having never played together before. I thought, yeah, this is a bad idea because it can only end in tears. But we did it. We did it and we got it over and it went out.
And what year was that?
Two UK acts to feature on that particular record.
What year was that?
2011, Jukey.
That sounds right.
All right. So fast forward to 2019. This is it. This is where it begins. This is where our paths kind of
converge. There was a rebirth.
There was a conjunction.
I think
you sent me a message going, we're in London doing a video for the first song of our 12 single run. Do you know anyone with a camera? I think that's how I first got involved. And I said, I mean, yeah, but it's kind of got to be a half decent camera. What do you want to do? What do you want to film? And I think you were like, we have no idea.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean,
so I thought
Spielberg dropped out on us and Storm. They just weren't available. So, and of course, we didn't have a camera, but we were in London. Had a tune ready to go, and it has to be
no camera, no director, no idea. So let's start January. First single, Cora Cora Cora. Tell us a little bit about the tune, who played on it, because like people find out every track is a kind of all-star ensemble of musicians. So January, Cora Cora Cora. Let's go.
Cora 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 came about. It was we planned to put Noon Drunk out first, which was the second single. As you're aware, Welsh, with the turnaround we had to get going. It's basically on a 3-week turnaround, and the more we listened, the more we really liked this weird goth post-punk tune we'd come up with. We'd been in the studio with Mr. Dave Barbarossa, which was very, very exciting. And he had this incredible sort of Bundy tribal beat going on in the chorus. And he had a really tasty sort of Susie and the Banshees type guitar thing already starting to happen that would inform his playing for the rest of the year. And that left some lyrics. So I was sat there thinking, I wanted to do something with a woman's name, which is was a tricky thing to flirt with, really, because it can go really wrong. But it was just something about the title, Cora Cora Cora. And we said, no, we're going to do that first, which was a bit of a trick because we were due to release it on the last day of the month and we were already on the 6th and didn't have a video. The tune's about a shadow lover. So there's someone who's watching, and it's kind of supposed to be a bit of a malevolent love song, which a few of the tracks this year have been. And Dukey said, I'll tell you what, I know where this would look really cool if we did it down by the Savoy. And then what happened, Dukey?
Well, then the whole idea of doing these videos, basically just on the eve of the release dates, meant that sort of time was never, ever, ever on our side. That said, we genuinely did have these mugs at the ready beforehand, which tells you about, the
this was my payment being involved.
You mug.
Well,
hunting down a camera and setting a camera up and pressing record.
Hang on, wait. You said payment. You owe us for those.
So that's how my
that was your advance.
That's how my directorial, is that the word? Directorial career started.
Director. Now that was an interesting one because I'd run round that morning coming up from Essex because of course when we formed the band I was living in London. We were all living in London, so it was just a question of going down the road. But I was flying around in Colchester, Essex, trying to find a print shop that was open that could print these Russian font Cora mugs because our font, the Bad Ideas logo's always been in the Soviet font. And I said to this guy, look, I need these mugs fast. And they are a ludicrously expensive set of mugs, of 4 mugs to use for the video, but they had to be done. So I'm flying down the road to the train station with a fucking tripod and 4 mugs. I think we had a kettle jiggy, didn't we? For one, that got edited out.
Yeah, we. The main reason being that we didn't have a power source. The whole idea of the Cora video was to have a little bit of a nod to Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues. And although we had other ideas for the Cora video, prior to ripping off Bob Dylan, it's when times are ticking, you need to borrow from Bob. And the initial idea was to have a kettle being boiled in the background of the video, and that we were going to use these lovely mugs after the kettle had boiled, which roughly is the length of time of Cora as a song, and that we were going to enjoy these lovely hot beverages. But we didn't have a power source to use in the back alley of the Savoy, so we had to just kind of use these with alcohol in them, to be honest.
So this is the thing, you're flying around trying to get all these props and different things ready, because what we did know is we love the idea of the steam happening, because it was you were there, Welshie, so a freezing cold January morning. We wanted that kind of New York steam coming out of the grates type thing, because of course a lot of people think that the Subterranean Homesick Blues video is in a development in Greenwich Village or New York, and actually it was of course outside the Savoy, as we know now. But we wanted to have everything. You get this idea of what you're going to do, and all you can do is have all that stuff on hand because you've only got a couple of hours to do it. We tried to get an extension lead into the kitchens of the Savoy. By then they were getting fed up with us as it was.
I remember we got quizzed a few times by some staff at the hotel asking us what we were doing. But I don't think we were doing anything we shouldn't be. We were on the public road or whatever.
No, I can't remember the gentleman's name came down to speak to us, and he was good. He was good as gold. I think I can't remember his name now. But it was fun to return later on. But yeah, I
remember it being freezing. That's all I remember, really.
It was bitterly cold, and of course, we raced to the pub afterwards, as opposed to racing to the editing room. That's
the whole thing. It didn't need edits. It was all about it being one shot.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, I've just filmed my first music video. That's a cool thing, to add to the bucket list or whatever. February approaching.
You did an amazing job, mate. Amazing vid, that one. So striking.
It was pretty hard to get that angle, You were there. So February, I remember getting another call. Welshie, that camera we use for Cora Cora Cora? So you're not found anyone yet. You've got another 11 singles to go this year. Now we've got a pub though. If you can bring that camera and yourself, can you film another video? Okay. You couldn't have found a more darker, dingier pub in the whole of the country, I don't think. There was no light whatsoever. So Noon Drunk, tell us about Noon Drunk, February.
Dukey, Noon Drunk.
Noon Drunk, firstly, does feature a wonderful person on drums, Welshie. So
I forgot about that. Yeah. So but I played we did a few gigs together, didn't we? Years and years ago. There was a few tracks that Ben needed some drumming on, so I was very lucky and grateful to play on them.
An early version of Noon Drunk, which I understand Ben composed as a mere teen, featured in the early Ben Wood and the Bad Idea sets that we did in 2011, 2012, and so on. And the track was always near and dear to my heart because it's one of the first tracks that we got a real band sound out of. And in the time that we had off just prior to 2020 making its presence known, Noon Drunk experienced quite a rebirth, and that rebirth is something that I'm super proud of because it was very last minute, as most things are with us. And she came in and did the drums to it in one take. And I think the feel on Noon Drunk is absolutely brilliant. And the track really, really sounds different from how we did it in the early days.
The original demo was just an acoustic, wasn't it? It was really slow and...
Yeah, it had that basic riff which became Dukey's bass riff. So it's that whole doom, doom, boom. But your take was stunning, Welsh. It was quite a thing to see in the studio because, you did it in...
It kind of went from, no disrespect to you, Ben, it sounded like a kind of Ed Sheeran side and kind of turned into a kind of Elvis Costello pump it up kind of boom, there you go, have it. And it took me a while to grow because I just knew the original, but I really like the what turned out in the end.
Yeah.
And who played on that one? Was that, I'm trying to think now, it's so long ago.
We do have a guest guitar player who features in both the intro and the outro, which is the lovely Mike Webster from Baddies and Asylums.
Baddies, one of the most criminally underrated bands, not only to come out of Essex or to come out of the UK, but probably to come out of the world. Criminally underrated Baddies are.
Absolutely. And that's where it was a really interesting parallel. There've been links to the band throughout, and certainly I remember going to their farewell show with Dukey at SOS in Southend at Chinnery's, and we were writing the next day for that. So it was and some crucial stuff which we've used in the past, and it was really interesting to be having him playing. And Dukey was really specific about the particular scooped guitar's trem sound that was used on. It was on Battleships, wasn't it? And
the live version of Battleships. Whenever Baddies played live, it doesn't feature on the recorded version. But having seen Baddies live a number of times, and particularly at that last gig, there's something about the way that Webster hits that trem arm on his Strat that is a thing of beauty, and that's the sound that you hear at the beginning.
And most of the time, do you just reach out to people with the hope that they'll be up for it, getting involved? Because there's some real stars throughout the year.
To be fair,
some people we know, other people we reach out to, or we'll say, well, sometimes if you're busy doing something interesting, people want to be involved in something interesting. Other things is friendships, like certainly, lest we forget, we've got Mr. Billy Ritchie playing keys on Noon as well, which is pretty cool, and he's a good friend of Andy's. It just happens to be mates with the guy who invented prog. That's just a cool thing, so they might do you a favour.
So, and the video, I remember really struggling and not being happy. I remember asking...
Business as usual.
You hit it well. You hit it well.
And who's the landlord who kindly let us use the pub?
Aid Clark.
Where was it filmed?
At the Lamb, which is one of the best boozers, if not the best boozer in London town. A wonderful,
the darkest boozer. God, I remember.
It is dark, but in the evening, it's perfectly lit.
I asked him, I was like, mate, have you got any lights we can put on? It's really dark. The camera's not looking great. I mean, he was like, yeah. He went around the corner, put this light on. I think I could have held a match up and the room would have been lighter.
It was a bit Victorian gaslight in there, wasn't it? It's very atmospheric. But yeah, I really love that though. Watching the video back and how dingy it is absolutely brilliant. So dark. Unfortunately, because of the amount of whiskey I had to take, I was too drunk to take in the ambience at the time.
I say most of those shots I remember were real.
Well, yeah, we didn't want to fake. We didn't want to fake it.
No faking it in the bad ideas.
This is it. We didn't want to fake it. So, and they said, "Are you sure?" Because the idea was we were supposed to stagger it more, but it's a bit like when you play live. You're like, "Well, remember not to start too fast, Mr. Drummer," and then you all end up at fucking breakneck speed anyway. That was the same for my pacing of my whiskey shots, which were kindly provided by the beautiful Hilda Herzog behind the bar. But yeah, I was pretty half cut by the time we'd finished, I've got to be honest.
I remember it well, because I wasn't drinking, so.
You're too busy.
Well.
He was having a teetotal phase at the beginning of that particular year. He decided in January 2020 to be teetotal, which lasted until your birthday in March.
Yeah,
talk about a bad year to do that in.
10 weeks, and my birthday's middle of March. I got to a pub twice, and then all the pubs shut. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. So March, 1930s gem. This was, I remember Ben calling me up. The world had started to go a little bit crazy, and Ben, I think it was originally going to be Lead Me On, was it? And then you had
yes. Yeah, 1930s gem was always just going to be our contingency track in case something goes wrong, in case one of us is ill, or if we can't mix something in time. It was there because as a track, it's something that we had filmed a number of years previous but never released. And it was a perfect just thing to have as a backup.
Yeah, because I played on the track years. What was that? Probably maybe 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I reckon. I think it's sort of 7-8 years. Yeah, a while. And
then we did a video years and years ago. And yeah, it was, from what I understand, it was going to be a backup track.
Just in case. And
by God, we needed a backup track.
Yeah, something happened, and we had to use the backup. But the intention was never to actually release it as such. So what an amazing track to have in the bag, and what a great video to have, as a backup.
Where was it filmed?
It was filmed in the Electric Palace Cinema in my hometown in Harwich in Essex. This is a beautiful Edwardian cinema, opened in 1911, one of the oldest picture houses in this country, and they kindly let us in to go and film in there. Absolutely.
I remember still being drunk. You can see I haven't even done my hair or nothing. My hair at the back standing up because your dad dared me to have a gin and tonic that was left outside overnight for breakfast, and I'm not one to
Yeah, I think we'd played the night before, and just to be totally professional before the shoot, we thought we'd get absolutely trolleyed before we had to shoot the next morning. So really, it's got that sort of starch Paul Blue signature sort of silver screen meets our sort of late 60s bleached look, where really we are that pale because we're that hungover.
It's true.
It's not effective. We're a little worse for wear.
Also Paul, I think, edited most of the videos, and he even edited that one 8-9 years ago. Because I remember you called me, Ben. It was a Friday. The pubs had just shut. I'd only just started drinking, and the pub shut. And you said, "Oh, it was going to be Lead Me On, but all this stuff happening. I think we should just use Gem. Just give us a month buffer just to." Sort out what's happening. So you were pretty lucky, really, with that one.
We're glad it's there. I mean, it was always on the table because even though it was the buffer, if you like, the one we, as Jukey says, the one we kept in the can, there was always the attention because we had this great track and we'd never released it. And we at some point we knew we wanted to release it, whether that be standalone out of a release cycle. And it seemed like it was going to be a great time. A great year to use it in. At some point, we just didn't expect to use our buffer by
so early. Yeah. And what's the song about? I really love the lyrics. I mean, I like a lot of your lyrics, but this one's quite.
The song's about when we were around the time of the London riots, I was still in London, but I can remember heading back to Essex and coming in on the train, and you'd see the Olympic Stadium being built and how much they were putting into that. And London was very much divided at the time. You had all of the sort of press and PR going into the Olympic Park. And as wonderful as it was, there was also this other side where there was social unrest. And I was just really caught up in this idea of the cooperative building in Tottenham had been burned to the ground in the riots. And I lived in Manor House not too far from there. And that just really upset me. You've got this beautiful 30s building razed to the ground, just absolutely engulfed in flames. And then you've got the stadium being built up and the tubes being done up for all of the.
Oh, I think we've lost you.
Benny Woo Woo, can you hear us? Benny, can you hear us? We have lost Benny's audio. Benny Woo Woo, can you hear us?
I can
Nod
hear
your
you.
head if you can hear us.
Did I cut out?
You cut out.
We lost you for a sec there. I'm sure it was a great story, though.
Oh, it was fabulous. What point did I cut out?
No, I think we got most of it, just about the beautiful old building being burnt down, and yet no one batting an eyelid on the brand new Olympic Park. And
yeah, that was it. That's what bugged me. So I took it to Dukey, and he had this cool riff, like an arpeggio thing going on. Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit of a, and again, something your drumming is absolutely stunning on, Director Bissell. Absolutely superb. Have I frozen?